Hey, we're in plot 2 today, and we're having to redo a bed. We planted this one over my shoulder last week with around 250 heads of lettuce, and the vast majority of them are gone. Based on the tracks in the bed, it was a rabbit. I should have known better. I should have covered up with like bug netting as soon as I transplanted. I did not, and now I'm paying for it. With that said, we're gonna go ahead and sow some spinach and get this bed rehabbed, just kind of move on with the next cycle. And we will definitely be pulling some bug netting over this row, as well as the remaining rows that have got broccoli starts in them. If I've got a rabbit in here now, if I cover this bed, he's just gonna move to the next one. So while I get the rabbit issue solved, we're just gonna pull some bug netting, get it fixed. Stick around and see how it goes. First step in the flip, there's a lot of little chickweed germination going on right now, so we're just going to go ahead and flame weed that out, and then we will tilter the bed with some fertilizer and then run the spinach through with the jang. Here we go. Okay, so now that we've gotten the bed flame weeded out, we took the tilter and some fertilizer through there. We're going to put in the spinach. We're doing 2 types today. The first that we're going to put in is red snapper. This will be more of a leaf spinach for bagging if it comes out. It's a new one for me. It's supposed to be really cold tolerant. We're doing 7 rows of that one, and the other type that we're doing is auric, and I want that to be a larger leaf bunching spinach, so we'll do that spaced out quite a bit, probably 4 rows at, I think Johnny's calls for 10 seeds to the inch, so we'll set it up at that. Anyway, we're going to run the seeder through and get both of those knocked out. Let's get the auric in. Morning. Didn't get a chance to finish up on the video from the other day. We were just setting in broccoli starts. We got all that covered or set in, and then got all of the rows in that hoop house covered up to try and prevent the rabbit from coming back. This morning we're going to be working on this grass. It needs to come out, mainly addressing it right now because I want to plant this row. And when I do the transplanting in that row, I don't want to be worried about stepping on anything when we take this out. So we're going to take this out first. It was a cover crop put in. Yes, I'm supposed to cut it, like mulch it down and let the biomass rot back in. But the main purpose for this year was just to hold the soil still, because we were getting really bad rains. It was washing everything out, and we didn't have irrigation at that point, so we weren't using these bed rows to grow anything. So the cover crop did its job. It held the soil still, kept everything alive, kept the soil working and having a purpose. But now we're going to cut it out using set of loppers. We're going to cut it out right at the ground level, cut as much of it as we can. We'll compost the top layer of it. The upper half will compost, the roots will rot away on their own. And then once it's out of the way, then we can come back later and address the bed. We'll need to retop it with compost, add the proper amendment load now that we have our soil report, all that good stuff. In the meantime, we're going to knock this down. We will transplant into these two beds behind me. We got kale going in this one and leftover cabbages going into this one. And then that'll leave us these two to work with in the coming future. We got to do some flame weeding to kill off some beds, and we're going to transplant cauliflower into the bed that we're going to flame weed. I might get a chance to show that to you. And then we got to take inventory of what's where and figure out what else we need to put in this week. All right, let's get started. Okay, now that we've got all the Sudan grass out of the way, we can get ready to start transplanting these two beds. The first one we're going to work on is kale bed, and because kale is a long-term crop for us, we let it sit for around 6 months of the year. I like to do it with a weed barrier underneath it. So that means we need to roll out a weed barrier and get it stapled down, and then you're going to see me use a jig and a blowtorch to burn the holes in the tarp at specific spacing that allows us to plant right through the tarp and keep everything nailed down. When we fertilize later in the year, we'll just lift the edges of the tarps and kind of side dress on the surface and then tack it back down. But that's what you'll see happen here. We're going to roll out the weed barrier, staple it down, and then burn the holes through using a jig. Okay, it's a quick look at the jig that we're using. This is a new one we cut. So you can see the half hole back here. That will be used to line up on the last hole burned, and that'll make some more sense as we move forward. But these two holes are 18 inches apart, and the center line of the weed barrier right here will rest the edge of the jig on, and that'll basically set our holes 18 inches apart, but they'll be offset. So there won't be a plant here, there will be one here, there, so on and so forth all the way up. Generally the way I do this is I'll burn one side and then burn the other side on the way back. So here we go. I tried to do a walkthrough of it while I was using the torch, but the torch is really loud and it's kind of windy out today, so it's hard to hear. With that said, we just burned a few holes, and you can see we're using this last part to line up that hole. And then when we're done, we just slide it forward and get it lined up on the next set. As you can see, we're set up on this hole again. Get that sandbag out of the way. We use that center line as a guide, and we'll burn these next 2 holes and just continue on forward. And it gives us a nice little even pattern all the way down. Finished product after using the torch and the jig. You see the holes are kind of burned through, evenly spaced, alternating back and forth. That gives us 18 inches between plants and 18 inches between rows. You'll see some of the holes are a little bigger than others. That's because the jig was loose on the material, so there a little more heat got through. But for the most part, this narrows down how much you have to weed. It gives you better control of the plants. Okay, now that all the holes are burned in, we've gotten the transplants in, and that process was kind of the same as you saw earlier in the video. Dig the hole, drop some fertilizer, drop the transplant, pack it in, let it sit. Now, the bug netting is mainly for the deer. If our greens get grazed on a little bit, they can recover pretty quickly, but plants like kale and broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, all that stuff that has a single head and no regrowth, if it gets nipped, that's it, plant's done. So especially early stage, we like to cover them up just to give them a chance to get established and get some size on them and get moving. So this time of year, the bug net's really for the deer, not for the bugs. Anyway, we got some other work done in the other hoop house. We'll pop over there and show you that. Okay, we're inside the high tunnel, and I told you before I'm really bad about not moving the camera while I work. But in this particular bed row, you can see some seedlings or transplants that just went in. These are cauliflower. This bed just last week was arugula back here and mixed greens in here. And because I needed to do a fast turnover, we cut them and then took the torch to it, gave it a couple of days, and then followed it up again this morning with the torch. I learned about using a torch for flame weeding from Curtis Stone in his videos, but I learned on my own that the torch is a quick way to speed up bed decomposition, meaning if you need to kill it fast, use the torch. So a lot of times what we'll do is torch it, cover it for a couple of days, and move on. This morning we had this last little patch of arugula that I needed to torch out. It still looks pretty green, but it literally just got hit with the torch about 20-30 minutes ago, and I went really slow and really hot to kill it off. And then you can kind of see these little pop marks all the way through. That's where I transplanted the cauliflower into and just kind of dug out the space around where it's going to go. And over the next week or so, it'll start to look more dead, like that one back there. And anything that did make it, we'll just hand weed out. We have a volunteer zucchini right there. I just can't bring myself to tear it out. But you can see the rest of the cauliflower spaced through the bed there. And let's pop out of the tunnel real quick and we'll show you what's going on in this next piece over here. All right, let's see. This bed right here was mixed greens also. We just got done torching that, and I will pull a tarp on it and cover it for a couple of days to finish killing it off, because I do have some time with that one. We torched this one last Friday. That one is dead, so we're going to run the tilter through it with some fertilizer to get it ready for the next round of greens. And this bed used to be turnips. We finished those off last week. Thank you for buying them at the market. We're going to go ahead and rake this and fertilize it and tilter and get it reseeded, and it will be just like those right there. That's another round of salad blend right there. We harvested that salad blend on Friday for market. It'll probably be ready to go again by this Friday. And you can see this beautiful cauliflower right there. That is actually a purple cauliflower and should be ready in December. Hopping over here, this is the 4 beds that we were just working on. We've got them seeded out with mixed kale and mixed greens and baby bok choy there. And I've got some Merlot Chinese cabbage that'll be coming in right here. And the next 2 beds over will get seeded in mixed greens later this week. But that's kind of a catch up of what we're doing this week. Still a lot to get done, but we just move through it every day.